Are getting breaking inputs at this point in time from the courtroom that the death sentence has been upheld by the top court. This is the latest coming in here from the courtroom. The death sentence has now been upheld by the court. This is the latest input coming in. We'll of course get our correspondent Meenakshi Banja in just a bit to elaborate on what exactly happened in the courtroom. But the input coming in here at this point in time that the death sentence has been upheld. The top court has confirmed death for Nirbhaya's killers. And as we've been speaking about, this perhaps is a step closer to what the parents of Nirbhaya have been demanding all along, that is the execution of the rapist. And Meenakshi Banja is now getting us the latest from the top court. Over to you, Meenakshi.
Well, big breaking news, Urvashi, along expected lines, as we have been showcasing on Mirror now as to how exceedingly difficult it would be for the Supreme Court to really go ahead and interfere with its own judgment, given the fact that its mind on the issue was very expressly known. Just moments back, the court has again gone ahead and upheld the death penalty, which it originally awarded in May 2017 to the Nirbhaya rapists. By doing so, the Supreme Court has dismissed this particular review plea, which it extensively heard before again passing the judgment today on the review plea of 3 rapists. Now, what will apply to 3 will ultimately go on to apply to the 4th as well, if at all in the foreseeable future he decides to exercise his constitutional remedy and file an additional review plea. But big breaking news, given the fact that in May 2017 we saw the Supreme Court expressly make up its mind about the issue. It spoke about insertion of the rod tantamounting to sort of a mental perversion. It spoke about as to how this incident showcased as to how these people were merely interested in ravishing her for their own sadistic pleasure. The Supreme Court spoke about how there were extensive bite marks on Nirbhaya's breast. The Supreme Court also spoke about the fact as to how this crime was so brutal, it was so heinous that if this did not fall in the category of rarest of rare, the Supreme Court wondered which would. That apart, the Supreme Court also termed this crime as barbaric, diabolical, and a complete devastation of social trust, Urvashi. So these were the findings, the original findings of the Supreme Court from its judgment of May 2017. And review is merely a constitutional remedy which is accorded to the accused to exercise, which they did in this particular case. Supreme Court extensively heard their review pleas. Every Saturday, the court sat extra to hear their review pleas. And today, again, it has spoken its mind. And, of course, one step closer, as we have been showing on Mirror now, is perhaps what we have attained towards the ultimate execution or the carrying out of the death penalty. Of course, there are 2 other remedies which the convicts and the rapists of Nirbhaya can exercise if they so choose. But again, as the saying goes, sometimes the wheels of justice, it progresses slow, but it surely grinds, Urvashi, and that is what we are seeing. We will be expecting some reactions in a short while. This is the Supreme Court. And again, Honorable Justice Deepak Mishra, who has been a champion of women rights issues, had noted very, very poignantly in that detailed judgment about the findings.
Yes.
And very critical here. The thing that has really hinged this case has been the completely unimpeachable dying declaration of Nirbhaya that she recorded before the magistrate. That has been very, very heavily relied upon by the top court, because remember, after recording her statement, after recording all that she went through in some days' time, she lost her life. So in law, that particular statement, that document assumes paramount importance, and that is why the Supreme Court has heavily relied on it. And again today, this attempt by the convicts, the rapists, judges of Nirbhaya to perhaps argue so many things about purported torture, about investigation being compromised, etc. Nothing has found resonance with the Supreme Court. The court very, very clear in its mind that there is no scope for review, there is no scope for reconsideration, and it goes on to reaffirm the death penalty as its final order. Back to you.
So Nirbhaya's rapists will hang. The Supreme Court has rejected the convicts' plea to reduce their death penalty to life term. And as Meenakshi, you were saying that it was exceedingly difficult for the Supreme Court to, to do what was not expected, and that to upheld the death sentence. And we are getting in more reactions. We'll also be getting in reactions from outside the court in just a bit. Abha Singh now joins us on the phone line. Abha, your reaction to this? This is, of course, coming in along expected lines.
Yes, it's a very welcome decision of the Supreme Court. The verdict of the Supreme Court in the review petition is appreciable because there were no mitigating factors. This was from day one. Nirbhaya rapist, I would consider.
इसमें AP सिंह हमारे साथ हैं जो सजा याफ्ता तीनों मुजरिम हैं उनके
The reactions have started pouring in from outside the top court, and we will be, in fact, getting you all those reactions in just a bit. But with us, Neelam Katar and Yogita Bayana continue being with us. Neelam, your response to this? This is a step closer to what the parents have been wanting all along, that of the execution, that is the execution of the convicts.